inches high. We've also determined that the lettering down here is going to be too small, so we're going to make adjustments. We're going to enlarge the lettering. Number one, ask the client how much flexibility you have in doing so. Because again, we're looking at a logo that has small and large detail, and the small detail is running up against the limitations of what embroidery can do on any machine or any software. So again, by viewing your grid, you can see the smallest detail is about a grid square wide. So you can see the words in Sacramento are too small to sew out. You can try it in running stitches, but generally want to do what's called satin stitches, which will be nice and readable. All right, so let's apply that to the rest of the logo. This is a bridge, and one of the problems is that this is a little bit abstract because they've made it high contrast, and they've let the positive shape of the bridge truss and the vertical supports here the same color as the background. So your question may be, do I digitize this as a solid background? So let's go ahead and do that real quick. We'll digitize using the freeform tool, and we'll do a normal, what's called a fill stitch. And just kind of tracing around, we can go clockwise, counterclockwise. If you have an if you have a perfect circle like this, then you can actually put fewer points on here. Let me see. And then, and you'll see that because it's such a regular shape, that, hang on a second, let's try this again, tools, and we'll actually enable our editing live of our curves. Here we go. So digitizing, starting in the freeform tool, I'll just start at a corner, and with the control key you can lay down a straight point, and not pressing anything other than your mouse button, lay down a curve point, and as you go around you can see that evenly curved items actually match up quite nicely. Now you can always adjust the curve live by just dragging and adjusting. So you can really get very accurate with the drawing tools of the program. And then finally, I've come around this way and I want to join this point to this point. There's no need to put any additional points. We want to go straight across. One thing that you can do is just right-click and uncheck Open Curve. And when I do so, these two will join and become the closed area that we want to make the red background. So let's do that. I'll uncheck Open to Curve. You can see now if I hide the art, you can see that it's made that into a continuous circle or semicircle. And now that we've drawn our shape, we hit Stitch It, which pushes us in the direction of actually starting to generate the stitches on whatever shape we drew. Following the directions of the program, it asks you to input the direction, which is the angle of the stitching. And to do so, you just kind of click and drag a line. Usually it's blue on a white background, but it's going to automatically change color to whatever contrasts against what you're doing. So set it at whatever angle. It can be here, over here, but whatever angle you set, leave it at, and then let go. And I want it to be about 45 degrees. It'll now set that. Doesn't matter where you put it. I just wanted it to be about 45 degrees. And now it's taking us to the next step. Input the entry point. I want to go to put an entry point right here. Now it's going to say input the exit point. Now if the fill angle is going to be this way, going like this, then I want it to end at the opposite end of the shape, which will be about here. So I'm going to click. I also want to make the stitching the same color as the backdrop, so I click on the current color swatch, click on my eyedropper, hit OK. And one other thing before I generate my stitching, well, I already made my stitching, is it's good to pay attention to the embroidery settings and what the program's going to do to the shape you drew. Number one, it created a satin outline, which I didn't like, so I'm going to hit apply and get rid of. I want to get rid of that. Go into editing. Let's edit that out and check my satin outline. I want to put some kind of underlay under it, and that's a good density. So you're going to play with all these numbers, hit apply, and that changes that for my preferences. And then going forward, we'll also make the same kind of fill for the reverse side. So I'm going to go to the reverse side. Now I want to connect this. Actually, it looks like it went up, and I actually want to finish out here. because I want to go from bottom to top. And now I want to kind of cut and go in the opposite direction, going down. So I'm going to go ahead and draw again. This is where your crosshair is useful. I'll go to Tools, System Parameters, turn on my crosshair, and I want to go perfectly straight across to set my next point. So I'm going to line it up on my first point and hold down the Control key and click right there. You can see that gave me a nice horizontal line. And then I'm going to place a couple more points along here. And you can see it's naturally curving it because it's such an easy, it's such a true curve the logo is. And finally, I'm going to join my last 2 points. Right-click, uncheck Open Curve. They all join. They don't. Didn't quite get the curve that I liked, but you can see you can drag and adjust your curvature until it's exactly right. And for those of you who are new to drawing, I also recommend try to zoom in as closely as you can. You wind up becoming more accurate in your drawing when you do so. You can see the little flaws that really didn't show up until I zoomed in really close. Really adjust that curve and make it correct. And you can do this before or after you adjust, before or after you generate the stitches on it. All right, so we've set up. I want to go ahead and hit stitch it. I want my angle to be about 45 degrees. And this time I want to start up here. And by the way, I've got my embroidery settings the way I filled it in. I liked what I did before. I set my fill and edge walk. Whatever you do here, you can hit apply. And that sets the defaults. Actually, not this button, but this. And so everything you create after this will always be whatever setting you had here, so you don't have to keep messing with that. All right, so it's asking me to put the entry point, so I'll put my first stitch. Finally, it'll ask me to put my last point, which is the exit point. I'll put my last stitch. Okay, now let's see what we've done here. We've created most of the logo, or at least the important fill background, and let's go ahead and redraw my stitching. So I'm going to get out of digitizing, go to View, and then Redraw Design, and hit Play. And you can see the underlay, and of course you can change that underlay, the density, and then you can see how it's sweet. And actually I didn't even need to edit my shape here. I've got my entry and exit points reversed. I want it to start right here and then end up here and hit enter. Okay, now let's try and watch it redraw View, Redraw Design, because I want everything to start from the center and kind of work their way out for hats. So you can see we're working upwards. It's going to one side, and then next we'll go ahead and come down and then work towards the outside. And actually, if you're digitizing for a hat, generally you want to do the bottom first, then the top. So we can see that the program's automatically created this little film strip of the order in which everything's going to go. And what you can do is actually drag and drop so that you can change the order of these. So now this is first, then this is second. Okay, so that's basic digitizing here. Any questions before I start doing some of the detail here? And we also don't have to talk about this particular logo. This is a good. This is just an example, and we can move off topic if need be. Okay, Kelly's question is, what's a normal size for a digitized logo for a visor? Now, I'm going to apply the same principle to that question that I would with all hats. It all depends on the height of the visor. So, let me see if I can't draw something here. I'm going to open a different program, just a drawing program, Photoshop, and I would say hang on a second here. Let me just open a canvas here, and let's draw our hat so that you all can see what we're doing. Okay, so Okay, so what I want to do is when I have a hat, let's just make a blue colored hat, and let's just draw that out real quick. Let's say your hat looks like this. You've got what's called the bill and the riser. So this will be the riser right here. And we're looking at it from the front, so you also have the bill. And actually, I'll kind of join these parts together, guys. But this is going to be very similar for, okay, so we've got this hat shape here. Let's make this shape just a little bit darker. Right, so we've got our hat, and then generally with your hat, you don't want to go any smaller or any closer to the bill than about, depending if you have the 12 needle machine, your no sew zone is right around the ½ inch and less from the hat. And then your sewable zone is going to be wherever this, so let's go ahead and do this in green. Your sewable zone is going to be something like this. Sorry guys, I thought I could bust this out a little bit faster. All right, so this is going to be generally your sewable zone. This is just true for just about all hats, no matter what machine, no matter what software. It's going to be, so wherever the hat starts going horizontal on you, you're losing that area, and and of course you can't get the bottom because of the bottom band. If you have the 15 needle machine, you can probably go a little bit lower, like you could probably go closer like this if you want to, but you can't get all the way to the bottom. All right, so the problem is a little bit different for a visor, where the shape of your visor is more like this. So your limitation is going to be the real height of this area here. You're still going to be missing this red zone here, so your true sewable area is going to be whatever this is right here. You can probably go almost right up to the top, but of course you want to leave yourself, for design purposes, a little bit of room. But that's your sewable visor area, whatever that height is. So sorry for taking a few minutes to do that, but that's my quick rough estimate of what your sewable area is. You can't go below a certain amount, and you probably don't want to sew right up to the seam, so wherever that seam is, stay just inside of it. So hopefully that helps a little bit. So that, and the visor heights are going to be different from manufacturer to manufacturer. So you're really, I would highly recommend, if you're going to sew on visors, actually have an example in hand so you can guess whatever the zone is. So really good question. Okay, you guys are a quiet group. Al or Cameron, if you guys are there, if you can think of anything, you're more than welcome to jump in. Again, it doesn't have to be on topic. I'm kind of working on this logo here, again, just because it's an actual problem that we've got. And it's a really good example, but really, if you can think of anything that you all are running into, you're more than welcome to jump in. Okay, so I'm going to continue on until the next question. Another dilemma that I ran into with this logo is that we aren't sure whether if we just leave the red like this, and then so the black on top of it, then what happens is that you've got a field of red that's flat, and then you have the black detail on top of this. And what winds up happening is this really doesn't look like a bridge. It winds up being a bunch of black shapes on top of the red background. Really, we may want to add a second layer of red, so we do our black and shadow, and the black shadows aren't very recognizable as shapes. They're just shadows. So I would recommend probably doing those shadows, and then go ahead and do the red as a second layer on top of it. So that's what we wind up deciding for something like this. So kind of looking at this, first of all, I'll throw up my 1mm grid, see what I can do. I can see that anything that's less than a millimeter is going to have to be a running stitch, and anything bigger than a millimeter I can do a fill or a satin stitch. So all these tiny lines here can be running stitch detail. All the black, wider black areas can be fill stitches, which tends to sit flat. And then I'll finish that off with a satin stitch. Now, of course, I'm not going to do this whole thing on camera, but let's. What we're going to do is we'll try the main vertical structure here for this bridge. First, we'll start out with the shadow inside here, and what I may want to do is let's look at how small this is. You can see this is only about 5 or 6 millimeters across, or about 1/4 inch. So rather than having to bother with trying to create all these individual black rectangles, I'll just simplify this. And you actually, believe it or not, wind up having fewer stitches than more stitches by overlapping like this. I'm going to go ahead and draw in my black detail here. And I'll make sure I'm doing a fill stitch, and I'm going to hit stitch it, and I want to sew black color, and I'm going to sew diagonally, start from top to bottom, and then come on down, and maybe we can do some separate areas here. Again, I'm not going to make separate areas here because it creates edge detail. I'm just going to draw in. I want to gloss over the big areas like this. Be as accurate where you can, where that does become important. And to keep it looking like this, make it at the same angle. And by the way, you can actually set it, everything at the same angle. Like the stitch angle for this is -27.38 when we actually drew it. So let's just go ahead and digitize the fills for this at that exact same angle so they all look the same. And let's set that stitch angle. That's -27.38 or whatever that number is, -27. Apply, and I hit apply. I don't need so much underlay. And I'll hit stitch it, set my angle's already set. I hit enter, and then just click and then hit set my starting point, my ending point, and then maybe draw this in as just a tiny corner. Again, we're simplifying some of the detail because it's not practical to draw every little detail at this size. So this becomes a simple triangle. Start. And since these are pretty much identical, you can actually just kind of copy these and paste them and paste them over themselves, and it looks like we may need to resize that a little bit, but save ourselves some time. Okay, so we've got the shadow detail kind of knocked out for this bridge, and you can see so far, if I get rid of the image, you have this, and let's even for effect, let's put the fill stitch behind it. So you can see we've got that so far. Now let's go ahead and zoom in and view the image again, and let's start drawing the supports for the bridge. And again, we'll just do this section here as an example. The first thing we want to do is decide what is on the bottom, what's on the top. It looks like this vertical section's on the bottom, then each of these are coming out at us to the front. So that's kind of how you determine some of the sequencing or the order or the layering of the logo. I'm going to start at the bottom here. Actually, no, I'll start at the top. I'll digitize a column for a satin stitch. Notice I'm drawing a little bit of overlap in here. And I want to do it in this color. Start here. Since we're starting with a new color, it doesn't matter whether they connect. You can see I've got a little satin stitch there. And I'll go and digitize the vertical column. Actually, I'll just go ahead and draw it all the way down. And then I'm going to start where I left off with this one, and maybe I want to end up here. So far I've got my vertical truss, and then since I left off here, I'm going to go ahead and draw here. And again, with embroidery, you're layering, so whatever you sew last is going to look like it's on top. So I want to make sure, that's why I'm picking my order very carefully. Let's stitch it. Set my starting point there and my ending point there. And then I want to run down to here. You can see that I'm starting to create that truss look. If I really want to, I can actually come in and actually draw these vertical surfaces, which is the right way to do this. I'll go and do that. So I've ended my stitch here. Maybe I want to walk around and do these vertical surfaces. So you can do a quick running stitch. Go to my freeform tool, create a running stitch, and start drawing my running stitch around to here. Start here, end here. And we'll do, even though we technically, this is too narrow for a satin stitch, I can do a running stitch. So actually, I'll just do running stitches on top of this. So we'll digitize. If you want overlapping running stitches, what I recommend do, well, let's see, let's just do a double run. So I'll do freeform running stitch, draw from here to here, and stitch it. I want to start, and actually on my stitch type I can do a triple run, which gives us 1, 2, 3. It gives us a little bit of layering there, and then end there. And what happens is I've got a running stitch, but since that's several layers, when that actually sews out, I'll have a little bit of thickness. See, there's my running stitch here. I want to then, let me edit that and put my exit point over here. And then I want to go ahead and cheat and copy that. Copy and paste it. Copy and paste it. And you can really just keep on pasting, but you want to make sure they flow smoothly from one to the other. You can see if I hide the images, there's a jump stitch between each. So let me change my entry and exit points. That one starts here, ends here. I want to do the next one. This one should start here, end here, so that's good. And then this one should start here and then maybe end going back towards there. So it'll actually go back and forth and then end up here. Now putting the art back up, now since I'm wound up here, I might as well finish up this cross brace. Now we're getting to the end of this, so I'm going to go ahead and stop here. It looks like we've got a question. Go back to my column tool, finish this out. Overlap into what will be the vertical structure here. Start here, end here. And you can see that as we're doing this, when we look at it in 3D, we're really starting to see that bridge structure come out. And just to kind of close it up a little bit, we can do, without digitizing the whole thing, by stacking these layers of satin stitches on top of each other, or these satin stitches on top of the fill, you can actually see that the bridge is kind of coming out from the background. And so that's starting to look nice. And that's one of the things that you can charge more for embroidery for, is because you have that 3D effect. All right, so, all right, let's see, we've got some questions here. All right, Kelly, you want to know how to stabilize a hat, or how can you keep a hat from shifting so much when you have no backing in the hats? The hat seems to be more like a piece of flat material and very hard to get in the hat hoop. So Kelly, you're talking about a hat that basically doesn't have much support, like it doesn't have the buckram. Is that what you're talking about? Okay, all right. One thing I would do is take advantage of the backing and use that as and sew the hat materials to the backing. So what I would do is, if you look at the structure of the cap frame itself, let me see if I can't find that training document on that. And let's look at the cap system itself. See if we can get a good picture of the cap hoop. Okay, so this is your cap hoop itself. Okay, so what's holding that down is only going. We're looking at the back, so what's only holding that down is going to be this tooth strap. So anything above this area here is going to be free to wiggle around, except for the guide plates that are underneath it on the machine. So, so if you have a loose fabric structure, then you want to kind of reinforce that. So let's pretend that this is our logo, the one that we're looking at here. So all the stuff that I'm doing is what's happening on top. And once you sew on an area, it starts shifting everything else, especially on unstable materials like spandex or very lightly constructed hats or flex fit hats. So what I recommend doing is, before we sew all the stitching that I created, or whatever you're going to create, is do an overall stitch that covers the entire area in a very light density. So I would go ahead and draw a shape. Luckily, the customer logo here is round, but make it in whatever shape of the area of the logo, and draw it. And then you want to go into your embroidery settings and set your density to be really light, like 20. In other words, about the density of underlay at 20. And let's make sure that we're sewing straight across, 0 degrees. And I'm just going to make this, yeah, let's just go and do that, apply. And I want to hit set, maybe start at the bottom and head towards the top, generally in hats. And what you wind up having and when we zoom in really close, is sort of a mesh, like a light density mesh like this. I would even go lighter, so let's edit that, and let's make it 40 by 40, which doubles the amount of space between the rows and columns. And that stabilizes the area of the hat. I would say even, let's go even more, 80 by 80. If this is a 2.5-inch circle, then every 8 millimeters you have a pass of underlay. And then also do an edge walk underlay, which would be tracing the perimeter of it. And let's go and get rid of the image so you can see what we want to sew first. So what's going to sew first will be this, and this will stabilize that. I would say put it maybe 2 layers of tearaway backing on the reverse side, and back on the cap driver, back on the cap frame itself. If you have a nice wide, if you're using this cap frame, and you have nice wide backing, it'll be clipped to the. You can actually have the wide backing clipped to the back of this, so it's not shifting, and then when this will actually sew the front of the cap material to this. I think that'll help stabilize it, and then you can put, then you can start sewing your detail on top of that. So that's what I would recommend to stabilize an area in a cap. So very, very good question, because that is a pretty popular, lack of a better term, problem that we have. Flex fit hats, very light density hats, and also stretchy items like beanies, spandex, Under Armour, all of that can benefit from this technique. Cameron, yes, 80. In this program, it's a little bit weird. The units are, a lot of the technical units are in tenths of a millimeter, so that's 80 is 8/10 of a millimeter, so very good question. And you can even not think about what the units are and think more about just the relative size of that. So if since density in this program is a backwards number, if I make that 4, if I shrink the number, then the density will get big. 4 is the normal density, or every 4/10 of a millimeter, then this winds up being a full density fill. But if I take it to 20, so you can just play with it, and you can see the different results that you get. But yes, 80 in this. And a lot of, in these measurements here, we're talking about tenths of a millimeter for a lot of the programs, for a lot of the program measurements. So good question. Okay, guys, I've presented my topic, and I've answered a few other questions. We've reached the end of our hour, but since with a small group like this, I don't mind taking additional questions before we close up. So let's go ahead and have a last call for any kinds of questions or any additional directions you all want to take this. And if you had any questions that come to mind during this, or that you may have thought about in the last little bit while we've been talking about digitizing this logo. Okay, and while you guys are thinking about it too, I've just posted some more digitizing classes and free embroidery machine classes. If you go to the same page where you got your schedule in your calendar, I've added, right now, of course, we're on the April 10th class. There's an embroidery class a week from now, and I'm generally having them right now on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Or 11 a.m. Eastern Time. But you can see here May 1st, and then also May 22nd, I've got more classes. So adding them to our schedule. And this class has been recorded, so